What's up guys, Chris Schwartz-Edmisten here from Schwartz-Edmisten Web Design. In today's video, we're going to look at how to make the scrolling block full width using CSS in Squarespace 7.1. So I'm here in this 7.1 site and I've gone ahead and added a scrolling block to a new section on this page, but I want to make this scrolling block full width. So we're kind of going after this same design here where the scrolling text goes all the way across the page. So that's what we're going to look at first. I'll need to go ahead and go to my custom CSS window. And the first thing I'm going to do is I want to limit my CSS to just this one section because we're not affecting the scrolling block itself. The CSS that we're going to be adding is targeting the section and removing the padding, which limits the width of the content. So if I click done, we can right click on the section and click inspect, and that'll bring up the Chrome inspect window. And this is how we can see the actual HTML of the page. So you'll see like right here is the section that this content is in, and we can see it has a section element type. And then if we scroll down, we have this content wrapper class inside. And as I hover over it, you can see it highlighted on the page. There's green surrounding it, and there's green on the top and bottom, and then there's also green on the left. So the green represents the padding on this element. And we can see here on the right-hand side, there's padding on the right of 4 viewport width units and padding on the left of 4 viewport width units. So what we need to do is we need to target this one section and then target the content wrapper class inside and set the padding on the left and right to 0. And then it also gets a maximum width set on it. And that comes from the spacing panel. We can set a site max width, and then this value comes from the site margin that we set in the spacing panel. So basically we just need to set this to 100% and set the padding on the left and right to 0, and that will start to allow the block to become full width. So the first thing I'm going to do is target the section using by targeting its data section ID. So I'll double click on the data section ID, Control A to select everything, Control C to copy. And then we target data sections, data elements in CSS by opening brackets. So I'm going to open brackets, paste in that data section ID, and then I'm going to open up some curly brackets. So now any element that we target in here will be limited to this one section. So now remember, we want to target that content wrapper class inside. So I'm going to double click on the name, copy that, and then paste it into the custom CSS window. And now I'll open up some curly brackets. And remember, we need to set the padding right to 0. And I'm going to add an important tag to make sure that our styling is overriding Squarespace's. And then I'll just copy that and we'll change this to a padding left because we also need to set the padding on the left to 0. So the thing that's kind of holding it back from still being full screen is that max width. So we need to set the maximum width to be able to be 100%. So we'll go 100% and add an important tag on that as well. And important tags are just kind of they're specificity hammers, I would say. It's like, it doesn't matter what previous styling has been applied to this element. Make sure that our styles override those previous styles. So that's why we're using that important tag. So now if I go full screen, it's going full screen, but we get a little bit of this horizontal scroll bar. That's because there's a couple things happening. So if I right click on the block, we can scroll up until we find the Marquee block in its column. So every Squarespace block gets padding of 17 pixels. So if I scroll down, we can see that this block on the left and the right has padding of 17 pixels. So because Squarespace knows every block has padding on it, on the row, they apply a negative margin of 17 pixels to offset that padding that the block has. So this is actually pulling the block off the page, and that's why we get this horizontal scroll bar. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to target the row in this section and make sure that it has a margin of 0. So right below, I'm going to target the row, and I just want to make sure I'm targeting that correctly. Let's use the SQS row class. And we use a period to target classes. So .sqs row, I've opened up curly brackets here, and now I'm going to set the margin to 0, and I'll add an important tag. And so now it's no longer pulling that block off the page, so we don't have the horizontal scroll bar, but now you can really see that 17 pixels of padding on the left and the right. So what we'll need to do now is just go ahead and target the marquee block using this class of marquee-block. And so I'll drop down below. Again, we target classes with a period in CSS. .marquee block, I've opened up curly brackets, and now we can set the padding to 0 and add an important tag. So now this is how you create a full width scrolling block. That's the final CSS. We don't have any horizontal scroll bar, which is great. The block is totally flush with the edges of the screen. And if we go down to mobile, it'll be the same thing. So the block is flush going full screen. So that's how you make the scrolling block full width in Squarespace 7.1. Next week, we're going to look at how to create 2 other designs using CSS to customize the scrolling block. So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it in the future, consider subscribing to the channel, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.